Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Robby, welcome to the channel. And today we're going to talk about the Canon M50. And, oh, that won't do. We got to fix that. That's better. All right, so we're talking about the Canon M50 today. And maybe you're looking to get into photography, videography, but your budget is tight and you want to get the best bang for your buck. Really, it's going to come down to two different options. It's going to come down to something Canon makes, like the M50. They also have some other models that are a little bit newer, but the price goes up, or something like Sony, and Sony makes a ZV-E10. There's a few differences between this model, and the reason that I usually recommend something like the Canon M50 comes down to a few things, but number one, it's got a viewfinder on it. The pop-up flash gives you a little bit more control, and it's going to have everything you need. It's got a micro or mini HDMI out that you can use. It's got a microphone in, so you can put a microphone on top of it. And Sigma makes a great line of lenses that you can put on this, including what I have on this right now, which is a 16mm f1.4, which is great for wide angle shots. It's great for landscapes. It's great for video. And I really enjoy it. This lens very rarely ever leaves my camera body. So you probably already know this. The Canon M50 is a 24 megapixel CMOS sensor. It's an APS-C sensor, which means there's a bit of a crop. There's a 1.x or 1.6x crop on that. So basically you're going to take the size of the lens, 16mm, and then you're going to multiply that by 1.6 to get what that film equivalent or full size camera equivalent would be. That's going to help you if you're also shooting on a full frame, but it's going to help you as you begin to grow in your photography capabilities and as you get used to what lenses would look like, because a 16mm on an APS-C sensor is going to look way different than a 16mm on a full frame sensor. It's going to look a bit more zoomed in on an APS-C because the sensor is not quite as big, so it's making a correction in there. It's nothing you have to really think about, but it's just something to keep in mind while you're shopping for lenses. A lot of people rave about the M50's video capability, and really that's where it shines in a lot of ways. It does full HD, 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, and 720p, so a little lower quality. It can do 60 frames per second, and it can even do 4K in 24 frames per second. The problem with the 4K is that you lose the really great autofocus that everybody raves about on this Canon M50. You're gonna lose that capability when you go to 4K. I'll be honest, rarely am I shooting in 4K. There's a bit more of a crop, so on top of the 1.6, there's another crop in that, which zooms in even more. And for me, 1080, it's fast uploads. It gives me the ability to upload to a reel or a TikTok or here on YouTube on shorts. It gives me the ability to do just fast uploads. Also fast editing. You're going to have a much nicer computer, probably newer, to handle 4K footage in a quick and efficient way. So some of the things I like about it, like I said already, the electronic viewfinder on top is great. It's 2.36 million dots, which is pretty bright for it's a little bit small, but it gets the job done as opposed to something like Sony's entry level, which doesn't have a viewfinder on it at all. It's also got the built-in flash. Again, I'm probably not using this too much on that, but it's there in case you need it. And then it's got a fully articulating pop-out screen. So the screen's going to pop out. You're going to be able to rotate this all the way around, do what you need it to do, and that way you can do, you know, kind of a selfie style and like this, or selfie style if you're shooting for a reel or something, you can turn it sideways and shoot like this. So be there or there, however you want. It's going to fully rotate around for you and give you that max flexibility for it. And so you'll see some footage that I have filmed outside, and using a CineStyle, we're going to color correct that here so you can see the difference that makes as I'm just out doing a little vlogging selfie video, again with the 16mm lens with a neutral density filter. It's very bright and it's very hard to tell with that screen popped out if I'm in focus, but I think the autofocus is doing a good job there tracking it, but it's hard to set my exposure, and so I'm trusting in the settings to figure that out. And that's where, again, if I had somebody that could look through the electronic viewfinder, even with that bright sun, I'd be able to tell. Probably need a little bit of a neutral density filter that's going to have a bigger stop down on it. The one I'm using is ND2 to 400. It's probably going to need a little bit more to make that happen, to make that a good shot. But again, just doing a quick run and gun selfie video in my backyard, and you're going to see that. This is some footage at 60 frames per second slowed down here to 25% speed. And you can see here, just with that laundry kind of blowing in the wind, slow-mo, what that's getting you at HD. And again, this is all out of the camera body that is going to run you used about $400. You do not have to break the bank when you're just getting started in photography. Now, some of the downsides of something like the Canon M50 is a lot of people have said the M line of lenses, EFM, is dead. Canon has stopped making them. They moved on to an R. You can do an adapter on it and get the EFS lenses on it. That adapter's, you know, going to run you 30 to $100, somewhere around there. And you can certainly do that. But I think oftentimes we really only need a couple lenses. The lenses become burdensome. You need a bigger bag to carry them, and then you're spending the time figuring out what you need for the shoot. And so I've really limited it just to a couple lenses, the 16mm from Sigma. And then the other one I use often is this one. It's the Canon EFM 22mm f2. And this is really small lens. It creates just a really small frame for the body, and I can throw this in a bag. It's really easy to use, takes really great portraits, about a 35mm equivalent, and so I'll use it for portrait lenses, everyday lens, videography. Balances really great onto a gimbal as well, just because it's so small and compact. I mean, overall, really, the Canon M50 is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of cameras. There's just a lot of functionality. What it does very well. It's not going to do everything that you probably want it to do, but if you're just getting started and your budget is less than $1,000, you can get the body used for around $400. This lens, even new, it's going to run you $300 to $400 on it, and then this lens as well runs about $200, and so we're at $500 we're at $900. You can still buy a Rode video micro mic to go on the top. You can buy an ND filter, and you can buy memory cards and maybe even some extra batteries. And with all that, even if you drop out one of the lenses, you're going to be just around $1,000 when all is said and done, and that's pretty solid. So that's really the good parts about it. Again, the bad parts, the 4K. The 4K, it's not real 4K. You're going to get an additional 1.5 times crop on top of the 1.6x crop for a total of 3.1 crop. My math's not good, but that equals, well, it sucks. And so really this 16mm lens almost becomes a 50mm lens, because if I'm trying to shoot in 4K, on top of that, I'm losing my autofocus. So I rarely ever shoot in 4K on it because of that limitation. Also, another downside, the camera does not have in-body image stabilization, or IBIS. It's basically left to whatever the lens has. And while you can do a gimbal or tripod, I don't want to always lug that around. And so that can be a little bit difficult sometimes if I'm trying to get maybe a product shot or something like that. It proves a little difficult. The footage sometimes can be a little shaky. I really like that a little bit. You can fix a little bit of that in post, but you're probably going to want to buy a gimbal at some point as well. But the Zhiyun M2 is a great gimbal for under a couple $100. So it depends on, if your budget's right at $1,000 and you're trying to keep it under that, really figure out what you need, what you're going to use mostly. I think a gimbal is something where it sounds great, but once you get busy, trying to balance all that and you're trying to run and gun, that may not be the best option for you, because it's just going to get left in the car because you're going to miss the shot otherwise. All right, but let's talk about kind of the ugly on this, my pet peeves. One of my pet peeves is where they put the port door for the HDMI and USB out on it. It's on the side here, and for me, I've got no nails. It's really hard to open and get that. So I've thought about even cutting those off, but I've left them on. That's kind of annoying, because if I hook it up to HDMI, if I wanted to use an external monitor, it's going to sit right up against, and a gimbal, it's going to sit right up against that. Also, if I want to handhold and have a monitor up top, it's going to sit on that, where Sony has moved it all to the left-hand side. Additionally, this microphone port seems like it's in the wrong spot. I get that that's a traditional spot for it to go, but when I swing open the door and that microphone cable is plugged into this, well, then now it's in the way, and I'm not able to actually spin this if that's plugged into that. And so I have to pop it out, spin it around all the way, then I can open it, or pop it down, spin it, and then back it out a little bit. And it's just kind of annoying. Again, it's just a pet peeve of, man, maybe we didn't really think that all the way through. But really, despite all of the bad and the ugly, the great things about this: small, lightweight, inexpensive. If you were just getting started, it's going to take great photos. It takes great video in 1080, and I think for lot of your purposes, if you're just getting started, you're not professional, maybe you're starting to make some money, you want to do that. Unless the camera out of the gate is going to start making you money, don't waste it all, because people are going to say, man, that's a great shot, you have a great camera, but really it's you, and you're the difference in this. And so I'm just going to encourage you to get something like the M50. Even in 2023, it's still a great option. I use it on for Zoom calls and team calls. I use it on Riverside to make a podcast out of, just with the 16 millimeter lens. And I'm using something like Elgato's capture card out of it. It works perfectly. It doesn't overheat. And really, even the settings in it are very simplistic to get you going out of the box. You're going to be able to take video same day and not have to learn a ton of settings. You can import things like Technicolor CineStyle in it as well, which is going to give you a lot of flexibility after the fact. You can find other videos here on YouTube that are going to help you be able to install that into your camera and really start to create content and create it efficiently and effectively for a low budget. And again, if you're not making money right out of the gate, don't spend a ton of money just getting started. You're going to want to upgrade. And the more money you spend upgrading out of the gate, the less likely you're going to want to upgrade in the future, or you're not going to have the money for things like the microphone and things like a gimbal or a tripod or the Joby Gorilla Pod or neutral ND filters that clip onto the front here, faster memory cards. I mean, there's so much when it comes to videography and photography that's beyond just the body. So I'm going to tell you again, buy the best body that you can within your budget, but then buy a better lens. That's really going to make the difference for you. And don't forget some of the other accessories that we often forget when it comes to this. So I hope that's helpful. What camera are you shooting with? What camera did you start with? Leave that in the comments. If this has been helpful, consider subscribing to the channel. And yeah, hope this helped. Keep shooting.